Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Virginia, and in today's video I have new Valentine's Day DIYs to share with you. All of them are faux sweets, so you might want to grab a snack before this one because I promise that you will get hungry while you're watching, because I got hungry and I was definitely craving some sweets while I made this. So first up, I'm going to show you how to do these faux ice cream cones. This might look like a complicated DIY, but it's actually pretty easy. You're going to start with some spackling. You can pick this up at the Dollar Tree. I got mine off Amazon. They were having a pretty good sale where it was $2, and I do like it a little bit better than the Dollar Tree one. So for that extra 75 cents, it is worth it to me. I'll have it linked down below. And I'm using my ice cream scooper. So I am just using my finger to place this into the ice cream scooper, because I found when I just put the scooper straight into the spackling, it wasted a lot of the product. And I have 3 different sizes of my ice cream scoops, a large, medium, and small. So I'm doing a variety of the different sizes. I also wanted some of my ice cream to have a pink swirl to it, kind of like a creamsicle, but instead of orange, I wanted it to be pink and white. So I put in a little bit of this light pink paint into the spackling and then swirled it using my finger, being careful to not completely coat the entire thing, because again, I want that swirl. So even though it was a little messy on my finger, it did make the perfect swirl. So I was very happy with that, and I let those dry. Moving on to the cones, I picked up the foam cones from the Dollar Tree. They're in usually the floral section where you can find the floral foam and floral wreaths. And I painted this using the color khaki, and then to get the ridges of our waffle cone, I used a hot glue gun. I forgot to hit record on this, but it's really easy. You just do lines in one direction and then lines in the other, and you have got your waffle cone indentations. And I did go over it again one more time with that khaki colored paint just to coat over any of the glue. I let my fake ice cream scoops dry for 24 hours before going in with the cones and actually assembling. And I went in with the spackle and I used, it looks a little interesting, but trust me, it works so well. So if you just add a decorating tip onto the end of the caulking that they sell at the Dollar Tree, and then just make sure that it stays put with some tape, it is perfect. And it really works. That way you don't have to get everything out, then put it into one of the decorating bags and then squeeze it that way. So even though it looks silly, it really works, and then you don't have to waste a bag. I went completely around the cone and then let a little bit drip on the sides before I started adding in my scoops of ice cream. For this one, I wanted to have it kind of all over, lots of different scoops, so I used hot glue to make sure that they stayed in place. And the reason that I put down the caulking first instead of hot glue, my scoops weren't quite large enough to completely cover the cone how I would have liked, so that was just a super easy way to make sure that there were no blank spaces. For my second cone, I just did a traditional 3 scoop with a cherry on top. And then to make sure that my sprinkles stayed put on the cone, I put down a little bit of Mod Podge, because of course the scoops had dried for 24 hours, so the sprinkles definitely wouldn't have stayed put. I wasn't sure if I was going to use sprinkles, so that's why I didn't put it on while the scoops were wet. I waited, but I really love how this turned out. This next DIY I have seen take over Instagram. So many creators have done such really creative DIYs using this. I've seen large versions, I've seen smaller versions, so this is my take on the faux chocolates trend. I started off at the Dollar Tree, picked up one of these little chocolate boxes, and unfortunately the actual chocolate box had indentations in them, so I'm going to be using the lid for this DIY. I picked up these really tiny, I don't even want to call them cupcake liners, it's more like a cake pop liner, and my idea was I was gonna use these foam balls that I also got and put them in the liners, but they were way too big. This was a much smaller Valentine's Day chocolate box than I thought, so I figured I would just make them out of clay. I haven't done anything really using clay in a while. I did a lot about a year ago for last Christmas 2023, so I thought it was time to bring out the clay again and start shaping some of my chocolates. I did circular ones. This one is a little bit longer of a rectangle shape. I also did, just a nice classic square one, so it'll look like we have our truffles, maybe our pretzel chocolate, our caramel chocolate. Leave a comment down below, what is your favorite? I love a good milk chocolate caramel. I don't really like any that have the fruit jellies inside. That's not something I really enjoy. And if there's anything that's a pretzel or a toffee, something crunchy, I really like those chocolates too. I let the clay dry for 24 hours before I went in and started painting. So I left one of the squares white so it would look like it had a white chocolate over it. This one I am painting black so it's gonna look like a dark chocolate. And then I also went in with a dark brown shade for one of our circular truffles. That's what I'm calling it, any of the circles. And then for the longer rectangle shaped piece. Then it was time to ice our chocolates, and I am icing them using paint. Obviously, do not eat these. But they really did look good enough to eat. They looked amazing. I think I might have been able to trick my husband, but I was being nice, so I didn't do that to him. And to create basically the piping bag that I'm using, I just cut the end of a little Ziploc and then pour the paint inside. So now to assemble our chocolate box, I added a little bit of these, I call them worms. I don't know if there's a better name for them, but you know, the extra stuff that you put in gifts and presents, and laid that down in the chocolate box. And then I hot glued our chocolates down inside. This one, I think, is my favorite in the entire video. Once you're done watching, let me know in the comments down below which one is your favorite. Moving right along with our faux sweet treats, I am redecorating a cake that I found in the children's toy section at the Dollar Tree. So I actually went in the kids section. I very rarely do. I don't have kids, so I just don't find myself in that section very often. But I think I'm going to be changing that habit because I found a bunch of really great items that I used for this DIY. They had so much faux food, which makes sense because kids play kitchen and all of that. So I picked up one of these foam cakes and I am completely giving it a makeover. So in all of the sections where it was pink, I am going over in a red paint. This is Crimson by Waverly. And then I did this off camera because yet again, I forgot to hit record, but I took the caulking that I picked up again from the hardware section of the Dollar Tree and went all around any of the white sections that was already on our cake. This was really great because I didn't have to make up a pattern. It was already there on the foam cake, so it was super easy to do. And then in the sections where those foam strawberries were that I had pulled out earlier in this DIY, I went in with a little bit more of the caulking just to basically act as a hot glue before placing down these artificial cherries that I picked up on Amazon. I will also have linked down below in the description box my Amazon storefront. Again, that's where I got the cherries and also these Valentine's Day sprinkles. I have had them for 2 years now and they're still going strong. I love decorating them, not only real food and treats that I make for Valentine's Day, but also for my crafts. This next one, if you have kids who are maybe having a party or you're having a Valentine's Day or anything, this is a really cute way to give a little gift. For kids, you could either fill it with candy, those conversation hearts, or even, you know, if you get a bunch of like fake rings or little kids' toys, you can put some of those in here too for a little bit of a treat. I am actually going to host book club next week, so I'm going to give these to my book club girls. So I filled them with some hearts and I also had some pink Hershey Kisses. I just think that they are absolutely adorable. I've seen people make the really giant ones all over Instagram, really using some of the Dollar Tree party bowls. You basically put the two bowls together and it creates a giant candy and you can really fill it with, you know, books and magazines and gift cards and all sorts of stuff. But this is a much smaller version, and then just to top it off, I added some fun ribbon to the ends of our candy pieces. Another DIY that has gone viral on Instagram that I had to try are the paper plate lollipops. If you don't want to use paper plates, you can pick up a stack of the plastic ones in the bright colors at the Dollar Tree, and then you can add on Valentine's Day stickers, lots of other items. But for this one, I pretty much followed the Instagram reel to a T. I will have it linked down below, the creator that I saw. And I picked up these paper plates from Target. You got a bunch for $3, which I thought was a pretty good deal because they were sturdier and you had more than the Dollar Tree paper plates. And I've seen some people where they will get a really large paper plate and then fill it with candy and Valentine's Day gifts. I use mine just for decoration, so not so much an actual gift for someone, but I really love the gift idea of filling it with stuff. It's kind of like a Valentine's Day piñata, but for me, I just, again, wanted it for decor. So you are going to put the two plates together. I added some fun colored paper straws, and then I took some clear wrap, which of course I picked up from the Dollar Tree. That's going to act as our lollipop wrapper, and then it tied everything at the bottom using some fun ribbon before trimming off all of that excess. Let me know if you have seen this DIY on any of your social media posts. Now we're going to go back to those sweet treats. So I told you that I was hanging around in the kids' toy section because there were some really great finds, and I ended up finding a whole collection of play food. So for this DIY, I'm going to be exploring that. I originally got it because there was a chocolate bar in here, and I thought maybe that would be good for the fake chocolate box, but it didn't really work in that one. But it worked out because I saw the little ice cream cones and the donuts and wanted to make them over. So using the ice cream scoops that I made earlier in the video, remember that I had used the smallest scoop and those fit perfectly on these mini cones. So I'm once again taking the caulking from the Dollar Tree and basically just using that as adhesive to have the scoops together. So for this waffle cone, I added a cherry on top to 2 of the ice cream scoops. And then for this traditional cone, I went all around it and then added on some of that pink sherbet looking ice cream. And I did 3 of these all stacked on top of one another. While I let that dry, I moved on to the donuts. I loved these in the pack. It wasn't originally on kind of my list of something that I wanted to DIY for this video, but I saw them and thought I could give them a little bit of a makeover to make them just a tiny bit cuter. So following where the icing already was on the donut, I thought that I would go around and basically do what I did before, really make like a nice cake icing, but it was way too thick. So I ended up pretty much just using my finger to smooth everything out and thin it out a little bit. And I really liked how that came out a lot better. And then I added some more of the sprinkles that I used in the earlier DIY onto that donut. So then for the second one, I realized what I did wrong for the first one. I had used way too much. So I just picked up some of what I had left over on my craft table and used that to ice this donut. And again, to add the chocolate drizzle on top of this one, I am using some of my black paint, putting it in a Ziploc bag that I have cut a very, very tiny hole out of. And basically that turned into an icing piping bag. I tested it out a little bit before going ahead and drizzling it all over this faux donut. I loved how this looked on the donut so much that I decided to go back to the waffle cone once it was fully dry and add some of the black drizzles on this too. I thought it looked exactly like hot fudge when you get that added on at the ice cream shop. So I loved that addition to one of our ice cream cones. Another treat that I found in the children's toy section earlier, I had found that foam cake, and also in the section, it was basically a cardboard box that had a bunch of foam kids' toys in it. I found this pie, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but someone, I think it might have been on Pinterest, took this and turned it into a slice of pumpkin pie for the Thanksgiving time period, which I thought was such a great idea. So I had that in the back of my head, but since I had the cherries from Amazon, I wanted to turn this into a slice of cherry pie to go with the red theme of the video. So I went all over the foam piece of pie with this ivory colored paint, and then I went in with a dark brown color and a sponge, and I'm just sponging all over to create that texture of a baked pie. Once the darker color had fully dried, to add a little bit more of dimension into our fake pie slice, I went in with the color Khaki by Apple Barrel, which is basically just a lighter version of the brown paint. I used my sponge to put that all over the pie crust. I decided that I was going to go over the cherry center, so that's why I'm not being very careful. I didn't tape it out or anything because I wanted to have a little bit deeper of a red color for our cherries and also something that had a little bit of a violet tint. I have this color called Berry from Apple Barrel, which just worked perfectly for this DIY. It's red, but a little bit pink, so I really liked that look for the cherries. Then I went back to the caulking, which has been acting as our icing, our whipped cream for all of the DIYs in today's video. And if I do say so myself, I think this was the perfect dollop of the faux whipped cream that I put on top of our piece of pie. And of course, I finished it off with an artificial cherry. I love making faux whip toppers. They are so much fun to do. I've done them for pretty much every season that I can imagine. Done them for fall, for Christmas, for Valentine's Day. And I hadn't done one in, I think, about 2 years for Valentine's Day, so I wanted to make a new one. I found these coffee cups from the Dollar Tree, which you ended up getting 5 of the paper cups with the lids and the really cute XOXO sleeve for $1.25, which I thought was a really good deal. So this is going to be our base, and of course, star of the show is going to be the caulking from the hardware section. And I did put a little dollop down on top of the plastic coffee lid. And then I put down a styrofoam ball. This way I don't have to use as much of that caulking, and I just went around and around and around until the entire thing was covered, and then placed a cherry on top. While it was still wet, I added the sprinkles. I learned from my mistake with the ice cream and not adding the sprinkles fast enough. So I made sure to do that before it had dried so that they would be adhered on perfectly. I'm going to show you how to make these marshmallows. Yes, they are faux marshmallows. So although they look delicious, they are not going to taste delicious, but I'll show you exactly how to make them. The great thing about these is you don't have to worry about them going stale because they're just decor. Starting off, I grabbed some of this Crayola Model Magic. I know that the Dollar Tree also sells some clay, but I had really great luck with this clay when I made my little ghosts for Halloween. So since I had a lot of great luck with it, I decided if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I wanted to use it again for these marshmallows. I also made snowman marshmallows for Christmas. I'll insert the ghosts and the snowman so you can see, but I'm having a lot of fun. I did one Christmas video where I did faux sweets, so I wanted to kind of do that again in this video. And all that I'm doing to make the marshmallows is just kind of rolling them into a ball and then flattening them up at the top. I used about 3/4 of the little pack of clay, and then with that extra fourth of clay that I had left over, I made some smaller marshmallows, making them the exact same way, starting off by just rolling them into a ball and then kind of making them more into an oval shape before patting down the top to make it form a marshmallow. These are really easy to do, easier than the ghosts were. Again, you're just kind of making a cylinder marshmallow shape by rolling it around and then flattening it at the top and at the bottom. Once I had formed all of my marshmallows out of the clay, I left them to air dry for 24 hours before moving on to this next step. I'm using the bamboo skewers that can be found in the cooking section of the Dollar Tree, and I just skewered the marshmallows from the bottom, and I did this to all 5 of them, and then I moved on. I didn't mind the natural wood, but I wanted this to be a little bit brighter of a DIY, so I did end up taking some Waverly white chalk paint and just painting the bamboo skewers. Looking back, I probably should have painted them and then skewered the faux marshmallows, but either way, it worked out, so I might have just made it a little bit harder on myself. But yeah, I would recommend go ahead and paint the skewers before you actually put the marshmallows on. Now is the really fun part. This is creating that faux drippy icing on top of the marshmallows. And I did this with hot glue, and then later on I will paint. You could buy colored glue sticks and then you wouldn't have to paint them. I didn't really want to purchase them. I couldn't find any in my Walmart or a Dollar Tree, so I'd have to buy them on Amazon. They were a little expensive, so I just decided to go with plain old glue and then paint. It's really easy. You just glob a bunch of glue up at the top of the marshmallow, and it naturally drips down a lot, and I did kind of stamp the skewer onto my desk that I was working on to create more of those drippies. Then once those were dry, I went in with 2 colors, a light pink and a darker pink, and I let the first coat dry before going in with a second coat. I did not let the second coat dry. While it was still wet, I went in with these sprinkles. I did find these on Amazon. They're a little bit expensive, and I actually saw in Target for $3 really cute different Valentine's Day sprinkles. So if you live near a Target, I would really recommend that. I do love these sprinkles, and I'll use them in lots of DIYs so I could justify it, but they were a little pricey. I'll leave them linked down below. Sometimes they go on sale. And I am just sprinkling on the sprinkles all over our paint. I did also put the tiniest bit of matte Mod Podge into the paint before I painted the second coat on. I'm not sure if it was needed, but I did find that the sprinkles adhered really nicely, and it might have been because I added that Mod Podge. In keeping with our marshmallow theme, next up, I'm going to be making some faux s'mores with these really adorable faces on them. I've seen similar DIYs and crafts going around TikTok, so I had to try my hand at it using some Dollar Tree items. I took the large foam dice, they're usually orange or green from Dollar Tree, and I just coated them in a white chalk paint so that you wouldn't be able to see any of that color showing through, and we would have the nice white of a marshmallow. Then I am going to be creating the graham cracker, and to do this I went back to the Crayola white clay and I rolled some out, and then I placed the dice on top of it once I had rolled it out and used my X-Acto knife to cut out the square shape. I didn't have any square cookie cutters. That would have been really handy to have, but instead I am just cutting it a little bit larger than the width of the dice. That way it will be able to kind of hover over the top of it and really look like the graham cracker. I also just cinched in all the edges, and I'm kind of just molding it and shaping it so it has a little bit more of that graham cracker shape. I then went in with the same X-Acto knife tool that I used before and made the lines that are on a actual graham cracker, and then took my little bamboo skewer that I used in the previous Marshmallow DIY to put those 5 holes in the clay, so again that it would mimic the look of an actual graham cracker. So one I have already done, and then the next one I am painting, again, to give it that graham cracker look. I combined the colors of Apple Barrel, Khaki, and Burnt Umber, using mostly khaki and just a tiny bit of the darker burnt umber shade of brown, and that seemed to give me a really good color to give off the look of an actual graham cracker. Next, I am creating the dripping chocolate and the faces on my marshmallows. The faces and the dripping chocolate I created on my own in Design Space, and I used my Cricut to cut it out of vinyl. But especially for the drippy chocolate and the faces, you could just use paint or even a thick marker. That would work too. So you definitely don't have to have a Cricut or use vinyl for this. So I first heard about this kind of style of crafting or decorating. It's called kawaii, which means cute in Japanese. And they are just, I mean, it makes it perfect sense. Kawaii, it is very cute, these cute little smiling marshmallow faces. So again, I just used this with vinyl, so I'm adhering that on to the actual dice that I've already painted. So for the first marshmallow, I'm going to be hot gluing down the faux graham crackers, but for the second one, I wanted to leave plain, so the burnt umber color by Apple Barrel that I had used previously worked absolutely perfectly as that dark chocolate on top. So I went ahead and painted that one, and then for the one with the graham cracker, I just added a little bit of hot glue to adhere the top down, but you don't even really have to use hot glue if you ever want to reuse the graham cracker. I was really making myself hungry with all of these different faux food DIYs, but luckily I could stick to my New Year's resolution because these are just fake food for decor, not actual desserts. So next up, I'm going to show you how to transform the wood hearts from Dollar Tree into some delicious looking heart-shaped cookies. To transform the wood hearts into cookies, I grabbed a butter knife and the Dollar Tree spackling. I applied the spackling all over the wood heart, the top and the sides using the knife. I liked this because it gave some texture and indentations into our what will soon be heart cookie, so it really did look like you iced it with a knife. So I also went in with some paint, a light pink and a darker paint. I added a tiny bit of Mod Podge to the paint. I thought it gave it a nice thick texture and dried really nicely. Again, by using that butter knife, it left some of the knife strokes in, which I think usually happens on regular cookies, so that's why I liked adhering it with a knife rather than with a paintbrush. For embellishments, I added some of the fun Valentine's Day sprinkles on the light pink cookie, and then on the dark pink, I had a little bit of spackling left, so I wanted to use it up. I put it back in the piping bag from the Dollar Tree and just made little dots all the way around the cookie and some zigzags in the middle. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, keep searching, keep creating.